قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the program. Great to be with you once again, and to remember, you're going to be keeping me company for the next hour and a half. We have some amazing young people in studio today. The first two guests are from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. We're going to be talking about the essay competition, and we're also going to be talking about the racism app. And to wrap up this morning, we're going to talk to a young lady. She's established an NGO. It's called Girl Code. Power to the girls. This is all about empowering our girl children to make their way into the tech space. So all of that and more coming up. Do stay with us, and we do hope you're going to enjoy all the interviews this morning. Let's kick off by talking with Bongani Makhubo. He is with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and is here to talk to us about something very interesting, but it also is a very clear and a loud message to each and every one of us to be mindful about the type of comments we make, the name calling that goes on in our circles, and just how much of hot water it can land you in. Bongani, morning, welcome to the program.
Morning, Chilen, thank you for having me.
Lovely to have you here. And I really commend the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. From the time of inception, Shane Bolton and his team are doing amazing work. It's just not a foundation with a pretty name. It's about being proactive and changing and touching lives in a positive way. Now, in keeping with Anti-Racism Week, you guys have introduced an app, and a very powerful app, is it not? How are you involved in the anti-racism app? What was your role in developing this app?
Okay, firstly, I joined the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation earlier this year. So actually, this is my 4th month with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. My role was to drive in terms of the development of the app, working with the developer as well as the funder, and ensuring that we are able to develop the app and we are able to implement the app. So
what's your background that you are so involved with this particular app?
My background basically is in the social sciences, but I've worked in the development of the apps before. So this was not quite difficult for me, but I think it was also an experience in a way, because it was a completely different app that aimed at eradicating the biggest social problem in South Africa.
How confident are you that this is going to work, and that the right messages go out into the general public? Because there is a fear, or there is that risk that because I don't like you, I could claim that you've made anti-racism remarks at me. How do I prove it? So it's my word against yours or your word against mine.
Okay. The app also allows you to basically, put information such as audio or any other supporting documents in order for you to support your statement. So it also allows the ones, people like in rural areas who do not have access to nearby offices where they can report these racism incidences, to be also able to, post these incidences either through social media and also through, through the app, which is the platform for us to be able to get their incidences. So it basically gives access to those who do not have access to such institutions. So it also allows us to work with institutions such as the South African Human Rights Commission for them to further investigate on these matters. So the primary objective of the app is not necessarily for us to investigate the matter, but for us to be able to see what is happening and where to identify those hotspots of racism incidents. So the main, it's a secondary objective then is for us to be then able to assist those people or link the people with the services that they would need, be it legal services or be it investigative services.
Talk to us about the development of the actual app. What are we looking at here? How was it developed? What are the challenges in using an app like this? And I have no doubt in my mind that it's been thoroughly tested. What has your findings shown you as far as the efficacy of the app is concerned?
Okay, the app was developed by Geek Culture, which is sort of like a startup company for the Innovation Hub. So the app was funded by the Innovation Hub and in partnership with MLab. Throughout the whole experience, what we had bugs in the development of the app kicking up some of the information. So we had to work tirelessly in ensuring that we produce a product that is able to respond to the needs of people. But also what we've seen is that we couldn't develop an app that is based on both Android and iOS versions, which is the Apple version. So what we then decided to do was to develop the Android version of the app first and pilot it and see what are the feedback are we getting from the community. And whilst we integrate the feedback from the community, we'll then be able to develop the iOS version.
All right, so how far down the line are you in terms of testing phase, or has it been fully marketed and put out into the public space already? I'm talking Android.
Android. We launched the app on the 15th of March. That's when we started the piloting phase, which took 2 weeks. It ended on the 31st of March. Out of that experience, we realized that there were some questions that needed to be changed on the app, and we also needed some of the things such as provinces.
For example?
For instance, we didn't have information that identifies provinces where you're reporting from. So this information is crucial for us to be then able to disaggregate information in terms of provinces, to be able to then say, oh, Western Cape has the highest number of racism incidences, for instance, taking place in the workplace. So we need to have that supporting information. And now we're in the process of integrating this information, working together with MLab as well as the Innovation Hub. And we should be able to produce the final product by the end of June, which will then be able to launch in July.
And iOS?
We doing this simultaneously with the iOS version. So basically the experience is that whatever we've learned from the Android version of the app in piloting it and the questions, and all the feedback that we're getting from the people in the community that are using the app, will then integrate it into the latest version of the app on the iOS.
Are you going to have a launch once again?
Once again, we'll have a big launch. Now, this is the launch of the app, because the launch that we've had initially is basically the launch of the testing phase of the app.
Will it be available via Play Store? As simple as that?
The app will be available via Play Store on both Google as well as the Android.
Mm-hmm. Bongani, talk to us about the types of incidents, racial incidents or racism incidents that was picked up during the test phase, and what was done about those incidents.
Okay, most of the incidences that were picked up during the test phase were incidences that were reported through social media. For instance, someone commenting on another person's status and using a K word, or incidents that take place within the workplace where a boss has called someone a derogatory word. So those incidences are reported to us, and some of them will find out from the person who's reporting the incidents what they've done about them, whether they've reported to the South African Human Rights. And a lot of them have been reported to the South African Human Rights. We then follow up with them, with South African Human Rights, to find out how far they're in the process. And in most cases, we'll find out that they are really investigating the matters. It's just a matter of now calling the individual to, finalize the matter.
What sort of outcomes can we hope from the South African Human Rights organization? I'm thinking the Momba case. There was the coffin case as well. I don't know if it's landed up, the coffin case, where it actually landed up with the Human Rights Commission. There was also the incident with the youngster on a sunflower farm. I think he was shot because he picked a couple of sunflowers. And then there are a whole host more. I think a lot of this is very prevalent with your domestic workers as well.
That's true.
Where they get abused and they get called names. So once all of this has been escalated to the powers that be, what sort of outcomes can you hope to see? Apart from the Vicky Momba case, are they going to be as harsh as that, or even harsher? Or is the thinking that perhaps be very punitive and impose very stiff fines on the people?
Okay. The outcomes can be both stiff and sometimes lenient, depending on the case. Just recently, I was working on the case of a doctor in Mokopane who has been practicing for over 30 years, segregating his patients, black patients
yes, I heard about that.
side and white patients going to one side. I felt personally on that case that the South African Human Rights Commission, they were lenient. Hence, because the doctor, according to me, has breached the code of conduct of the doctors, which, basically stops them from, desegregating or, segregating their
It's
patients.
almost dehumanizing
So
black people by that action of his. What sort of sentence was imposed on him?
On their sentence, he was, told to apologize and also to go for the, advocacy training on anti-racism, which I felt it was too much of a lighter sentence for someone who has been practicing on doing this for over 30 years.
What would you like to have seen?
Then on my side, I would have taken the matter to the Ethics Committee of the Health Professions Council of South Africa to investigate further on the matter and apply the sanctions on the matter. Because I feel like on the lighter side...
To get him struck from the medical board?
I would basically, according to their website and the guidelines, there's a procedure that one needs to follow. You write to them and you lodge a complaint, and they take it from there in terms of investigating the matter. So I feel like this matter should be given to them for them to deal with it accordingly.
Do you think something can still be followed through with that, or is it a open and shut case now?
Currently, we are waiting for them to give us feedback in terms of what has been done with regards to the case. But I do believe that a proper procedure will be, followed in terms of that.
Let's go for our first ad break. That's Bongani Makhubo. He's from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. He's talking about the anti-racism app, and it's going to be relaunched in a month's time. And I think the lesson and the message to you and I simply is we need to be very careful, even in jest, if we use the K word, the B word, the C word, and I'm going to get to that after the ad break, that we could find ourselves in deep trouble with the law. Stay tuned. Still to come on the show, we're going to talk Girl Code, and we're going to talk about the essay competition, also from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation. And the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation is being featured on our show this morning. In the first part of the interview, obviously, we're talking about the racism app, and later on, also from the foundation, we'll be talking about the essay competition. Now, Bongani, what about, you talk about the K word, what about in cases with Indian people, the C word, colored people, the B word, I should imagine, and white people? I'm not sure what word is used for white people. Can I, as an Indian, come to you and lay a charge against a black colleague and say, he or she called me the C word?
That's true. I think racism is racism. It's not a matter of the fact that it should happen between a white and a black person. Maybe in the past, a lot of cases that were appearing or were being reported were cases of black and white person. But racism is racism. It can happen between a black and white person, an Indian and a colored person. We've seen it in other areas, such as El Dorado Park, where we work mostly with schools, that racism cases are quite rife in such schools. So, and that's why we've taken, the liberty to focus in schools, to focus in the workplace, and also to focus in communities that are affected by these incidences mostly.
Recently, there was a black-on-black racism issue. I mean, I was quite surprised when something like that came to a court, so to speak. What do you make of that? Do you think that it has any merit, or should it just have been, swept away?
I think it shouldn't, personally, it shouldn't be swept away. It's something that we really need to study further, because there hasn't been so much that has been written in terms of black-on-black racism. So it then gives our civil society organizations an opportunity to basically research it further and see what sanctions can be put in place. But I do believe that black-on-black racism does, exist, and it's something that should also be sanctioned and, punished accordingly as well.
What about if I'm in a workplace and I'm the victim of racism slurs, but I don't do anything about it, but it seems to impact on other people in the workspace, and they then bring the issue to you. But I say to you, please drop the case, I'm not interested in taking it any further. How do you deal with something like that?
Since this also affects other employees, I think it's something that should be taken forward, as much as you feel that probably you are afraid of being victimized as an individual, but you do have the voice. Currently we've dedicated this month to racism in the workplace. We are going to have a roundtable working closely with academia, working with trade unions, as well as other civil society organizations to see how best can we, and employees, for instance, create a platform where employers create a platform for employees where they can be able to report such incidences without having a guilt of being victimized, without having the fear of how they are going to be identified by other employees. So it's an opportunity, for organizations such as, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation to basically, investigate and see how best we can change the policies within, the workplace.
If this important information is not disseminated to the wider public and they're not aware of it, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be reported. So what are the do's and the don'ts around these type of incidents? What should I not be saying and doing to offend the opposite party, be he black, blue or white?
I think people should really be thinking about what they say, because currently we're in the process of, South Africa finalizing the hate bill, which also,
the hate bill,
which is in the final stages. It came with a lot of comments since the first draft was made available in 2016, because it went as far as saying anyone, for instance, a journalist who is reproducing something that was posted on social media, for instance, with a statement of K-word, that person is also guilty of the offense. And then people were like...
Even though it's been done very innocently on his part.
Even though the role or the main purpose of the journalist was to just make our people aware of the incident. So we then questioned, to say, what then would the role of media be if they are also guilty of the offense? Because the main, purpose then would be to inform people, but if they're also found guilty, what would their role be in terms of raising and making?
Isn't that a bit one-sided or unfair?
It's a bit unfair, and that's why organizations such as the hate bill working group have been saying that the hate speech and the hate crimes bill, those are two separate things, and we should rather focus on one thing rather than combining those two things in one bill.
Let's be very clear for the benefit of the viewers this morning. What is hate speech? What happens if you and I have an altercation and we scream and rant and rave at each other, but we don't use the K word? Can I still go and report you or vice versa and say that there was hate speech involved there?
That matter needs to be investigated. I think there are things that would make speech, becomes a hate speech. For instance, if it happens that we argue and we're just focusing on the matter, for me, that would not necessarily be hate speech. It's a matter of just having an argument, disagreement on a particular issue. So something needs to make it or need to give it a merit for it to become a hate speech.
So you could use any other four-letter word apart from the C, B, or K word for it to either be or not be hate speech.
Yeah.
So you could have a furious fight and you could use very bad words in that altercation, but as long as the K word is not used, you're okay. Is that what you're saying?
It can be K. It's not only K word, but it can be other word that can be
For
used.
example?
Any derogatory word, like words such as monkey, because in South Africa that has been associated with a racial slur and also the history of black people in South Africa. So we need to be really careful in terms of what we say as individuals. So there are a lot of things that could actually merit it to become a hate speech.
I'm wondering if I have a slight altercation, I have a general discussion with you, and in the process of the discussion, I use the word, for example, monkey, but very innocently, without having intended to, to be anti-racist towards you. You decide then to lay a charge against me. How do I defend my position when I know that I came from a good place, or I said it in jest?
What you're saying right now is similar to what the incident that we had earlier this year with H&M, and we usually call it accidental or unintentional racism.
Just remind us of that incident, please.
For instance, with H&M, they had this hoodie that for them it was innocent.
Oh, with the monkey logo.
Monkey, coolest monkey in the jungle.
That's right.
Logo. For them, it was innocent because monkey in other countries is associated with very nice,
cuddly.
active, cuddly, So for them, children are associated with that. Whilst in South Africa and also in other countries, that is, with black people, it's a derogatory word. It is, racial slurs and all of that. So even though it was not their intention to do that, but it still caused media outrage to such an extent that probably lost millions and millions because they had to remove, the hoodie out of their shops. And they went as far as ensuring that they employ the diversity manager, whom we've been engaging with as, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, and working with them to ensure that they become aware of, country's history, and they also, not intentionally, produce such material. They also study the country before, they make material or, for instance, such as hoodies for that particular country. So I think for us, for one, you really need to be careful because you might not be doing it intentionally, but the outcome of that would be difficult for you to defend because at the end of the day, H&M couldn't even defend themselves to say, oh, but this was not intentional because their stores, we know that they were destroyed, for instance, in Sandton.
There was a lot of mayhem.
So there are a lot of vandalism that was done about that. So it would be quite difficult for you to defend yourself. So one needs to be really careful and, really understand the context of where they are.
Obviously, for the purposes of this interview, we're almost coming to the end of the interview. Give us a couple of pointers, the definite do's and the definite don'ts as far as racism is concerned. And how does one navigate oneself through this minefield? Because if you don't know, like you said, it could be accidentally, it could be unintentionally, and you just find yourself in a lot of hot water, possibly facing some form of lawsuit or possibly a very stiff fine. And is that something you're looking at as well, a jail sentence and a very stiff fine, like in the Mombo case?
Okay, that has already been outlined in the Act. Where they state that the Mombo case basically becomes sort of like an example for this hate bill, which is going to be passed probably before the end of this year, where they say that a fine can be imposed, or a penalty or a warning, or even a jail sentence, depending if whether you're a first-time offender or a second-time, up to a minimum of 5 years, I think, on the second bill.
Sure. Because
the first version was saying up to 10 years, depending if whether you're a first-time offender or second-time offender. So we do, in my opinion, we should agree with such sanctions, but also I felt like the bill missed something to say, if we impose these sanctions, if we impose these punitive measures, how are you also going to rehabilitate this person to make sure that this person does not repeat such things in the near future? So that's what I felt like the second version of this, bill, the 2018 version, missed out on, and there's still an opportunity for us to address such. So in terms of the do's and don'ts, I think
as far as the rehabilitation is concerned, what do you have in mind? Community work amongst
these things, it's community work, attending diversion classes where you also, become aware of what you've done wrong, also understand the context and why it is wrong in the first place, because other people defend it and they see nothing wrong. For instance, we have a lot of cases where in the Mombo case, she appeared in court, she had cornrows, and she says, look, I can have the very same hairstyle that black people have, and there's nothing wrong. I love black people as much as I did say the K word, and others make an excuse to say, I was angry, and therefore that's why I said this K word, and only apologize later. But it does not excuse the fact that you got to a point where you said the K word. So people should first avoid, sometimes if you know that you are this person that, during, at the point of being, angry, you say things that you regret later. Rather avoid the situation and address it later when you are calm and cool. And also try as much as possible to learn more about things that would be offensive to other people. For the first time, I work in the Indian community. I work with Indian, colleagues. I try as much as possible to become aware what would be offensive to them, and that would necessarily not be offensive to me if it's done to me. So that also helps, try as much as possible to be aware of the environment and also be aware of, the people that you're engaging with.
I sincerely hope that once the bill is passed, the hate bill, that the information is going to be rolled out at all the schools, universities, and the workplaces as well, to make people aware of their rights, their obligations as far as respect and dignity is concerned, and they don't find themselves in a situation where they are now accused of hate speech. Thank you indeed for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.
That was Bongani from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation talking to us about the hate speech app, which is going to be relaunched sometime next month, and of course just at a click of a button you could report a racist incident. And that also brings home a very strong message to you and I, and that is, be careful how you interact, and of course, as Muslims, we know underpinning our beautiful deen is respect, dignity, and on those principles, respect, dignity, and awareness of not hurting anybody intentionally or unintentionally, hopefully we will never find ourselves in such sticky situations. Next, we're going to talk still with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, the essay competition, and to round up this morning, girl power with girl code. And we're still with the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation and still with the issue around racism, overtones or undertones, depending how you look at the issue. This time around, it's the youth essay competition, and Dawood Raphalalane is here to talk to us about it. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Earlier on, we spoke to Bongani about, obviously, the racism app.
Yes.
You are here to talk about the youth essay competition, but it's a very special competition, is it not?
It is.
Tell us about it.
So 2018 is also known as the year of Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. So it's a centenary of Nelson Mandela. So with that, in our contribution to the centenary, we, the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation, invite young people to share their thoughts and participate in the essay writing competition against racism. Yes.
You had a similar essay competition last year.
Yes.
What was the brief then?
Well, last year we did have this competition and it went very well. We partnered with the organization called Queer Africa, and then we did the competition and it went very well. The young people, 3 winners, were awarded on our calendar launching last year. So it went very well. Was
the theme similar or different?
The theme was different. It was just a youth essay writing competition. It had no commemoration in terms of like this year. This one is dedicated to the centenary especially.
Let's look at the age group that you're targeting.
So this year we're targeting from 15 to 21 years of yes.
When does it open and how do people apply to send their essays in?
So young people can write their essay based on the 3 topics. One, which is a future free of racism. The second one is tolerating racism is racism. And the last topic, which is our theme for the year, root out racism. So they can write based on those 3 topics, and they can send their essay to us by email, youth@kathradafoundation.org, or they can fax it to us on 011-852-8687, or alternatively they can post it to us at P.O. Box 3240, Lenesia 1820.
And if they've missed any of that, they can just go to your website,
yes,
obviously, and get all of the information there.
Yes,
so when does the competition, has it opened already?
It is opened already.
And closes when?
It closes on the Mandela Day, 18 July, because it's...
Talk to us about the amazing prizes and then also the type of material you're hoping to receive through these competitions.
So the prizes, there's amazing prizes up for grabs. So it's 3 laptops for the 3 winning essays.
Wow.
Yes, laptops with the supporting stuff of the laptop. And we're hoping to just get the thoughts and the experiences of the young people based on what they've experienced in their lives in terms of racism issues. Yes.
They can share their personal story,
they can share
obviously.
Their personal stories, yes.
If people have been in a situation where they've combated racism and overcome it, they can talk about that as well.
They can talk about that, yes, yes.
Are they allowed to give names of the people that they were involved in, actual names, or would you prefer not?
You know, it's just something that it should come from their heart. So whatever they feel like putting on that paper, it's up to them. So we don't have any strict rules in terms of what should be in the paper, as long as they write from their heart and they're happy with what they wrote, and they can send it to us.
Now, when you look at, and I'm sure you're going to be inundated with entries,
yes.
What are you going to do with all of this material that you get? Because it's fine to run a competition like
yes,
this,
yes.
and very valuable information is going to come through.
Yes.
You're going to understand the thinking of young people,
yes, yes.
very especially around racism. What's going to happen with all of this information?
So, since we're talking about the thoughts and experiences of young people, it is going to be very valuable to the foundation because it works on that space of racism. As you know, the foundation is about deepening racialism. So that material is going to help us also to understand what young people are going through, and then it will maybe change our approach in terms of working with young people while we understand what they're going through on a daily basis. So with that, those essays will be able, because we're going to read them, and then we'll be able to understand what young people are going through, and then we'll have a different approach when we're working with them. Because
that information needs to be disseminated to the broader public.
Yes, yes.
Because it's no good having this competition and you come across very valuable information. And for the country to understand where young people are at, you're a young person yourself. Have you ever had any issues of discrimination against you just because of the color of your skin?
Yes, I have. As a Muslim,
as a black Muslim?
As a black Muslim in particular, yes. Yes. So there's issues of people thinking that Islam is mostly for Indians, the people who don't really understand what's happening and what is Islam all about. So sometimes you get attacked being a Muslim, black Muslim in particular. And I've experienced that you're not supposed to be a Muslim because you are black, and there's no black Muslims. All Muslims should be Indians and stuff like that.
Could that equate into an anti-racism case?
I think,
or Islamophobic?
I wouldn't put it on Islamophobic space. I think it's someone just judging you based on your skin color. You can't be this because you're black. You see, I think it's another special kind of discrimination. Yes.
How would you like to change that narrative as a black Muslim and to get a very positive message out to other people who don't understand that you could be any color but you could still be Muslim?
Yes.
And a proud one at that.
I think it's something that we should all strive to, making people understand what is Islam all about. You understand? They must understand that Islam is for everyone. It's not only for Indians, it's not only for Arabs or whatever race. It's for everyone, and then we just need to make sure that people understand. We need to teach people so that people understand.
So it's the awareness of these type of issues, and then coming back to the essay or the essays.
Yes.
What has come across? Who's going to adjudicate the process? I have no doubt that you guys are already receiving essays and
Yes.
you're already going through them.
Yes.
What has stood out for you so far? What sort of stories have jumped out at you, and as a young person make you feel this needs to change? People need to be aware of this, and this needs to change.
You know, there's one essay in particular that I already received and I read it. And the young person who wrote that essay was actually talking about how he couldn't be in a relationship with someone of a different color because the parents could not understand. They are the generation of apartheid, and they still live in those, maybe the bubble of Group Areas Act. You understand? So yeah, it hurts them because they want to be with a particular person, but they can't because their parents don't allow them to do that. And it's just something that they're going through on a daily basis, and they feel hurt about that. So I'd like to change also the mindset of the older people who lived in the days of apartheid and their minds were like just congested into one
that
thing.
white is superior,
Yes,
any other
yes,
color
yes,
besides black is superior. How do you plan on doing that? I'm sure you're thinking long and hard about it.
Yes. I mean, it's not an easy thing. It will be a journey. And we need to be on board, all of us, in order to rectify those things, you know. So they must just understand that we live in a different world now, you know. Everyone is equal, you know. There might also be other things that are just still in there, and then actually racism itself is still there. It has been there before, and then we just need to be able to say to people that we live in a different world. We are all equal. We should accept each other with our differences and just be women, because the most important race is human race.
And for goodness sake, it's the 21st century. We need to move out of the dark ages. Now, there seems to be a lot of emphasis by the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation on the racism issue. You can see this from the anti-racism app. You can see this from the essays that you guys are running. What else are you guys working on currently? And what does the future look like in terms of future projects of the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation?
So speaking on the part of the youth, as I work in the youth department of the foundation, we are now working on establishing youth clubs. So Ahmed Kathrada was a man who was very passionate about youth, young people. Yes. So we want to create what we call youth activists in all aspects, you know, not only in politics or the government issues matter. So we want to create youth activists in medicine, youth activists in social cohesion, and all other kind of
upskill them and empower youth.
Yes. Youth will be able to stand out and represent themselves, represent their communities and the country. Understand? So that is what is underway right now. We're still working on that. There's a workbook that we will be launching soon. That will be the accompanying material to create those youth clubs.
I presume this will be rolled out at schools throughout the country, inshallah.
Yes, inshallah.
Dawood, shukran very much for being with us. Lots of luck with the essay competition. Lovely to have you on the show, and Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Jazakallah, Ramadan Mubarak to you too.
Assalamu alaikum.
Salam.
That was Dawood from the Ahmed Kathrada Foundation talking to us about the youth essay competition. For details of that, please go to the Ahmed Kathrada website, and who knows, you could be one of the winners and you could walk away with a laptop. Next on, Girl Power with Girl Code. And welcome back. And of course, right at the beginning of the interview, I've been talking about girl code and girl power. So guys, move out the way. The girls are here, and they're here to disrupt big time as far as the technology field is concerned. Zandile Keebine, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
And comments about my intro? Would you say I'm spot on?
I think you 100% spot on. Girls are here and they want their own piece of the pie. So yeah, spot on.
All right.
Girl power.
Who is Zandile and why is she involved in this NGO called Girl Code? And we're going to unpack Girl Code in detail, because this is going to truly excite all the girls watching us this morning. Girls and older women as well, because there's space for them too.
Exactly. So my name is Zandile, as you rightly said, and my background is really in mathematics, actually. So I studied computational and applied mathematics at the University of the Witwatersrand. And while I was doing so, I got introduced to coding through an internship that I did, and I realized, wow, this is such a powerful thing. And, you know, when I got into the space of technology and working for IT companies, I realized there aren't any girls in the space, and there's so much that we could do, so much
or
innovation.
Not many girls.
Not many girls, exactly. Like you find yourself in a room where you're one of 2 or 3 other girls. So yeah, but for me, technology is a tool that we can use to really start to empower our communities, and that's something that I'm very passionate about, and how I came, to start Girl Code.
And obviously what you're saying is that the technology arena is very male dominated.
Correct,
and here comes Zandile Keebine, and she's busy disrupting the space, and you formed an NGO called Girl Code. Now, I read a long time ago, I read somewhere that coding, as daunting as it might seem to a lot of people like myself who's terrified by technology, I've been told, or I've read rather, that if you're able to knit, do knitting with needles and wool, coding is very similar to that. Would that assumption be correct?
No, I think that's correct. It's ones and zeros, right? That's what programming is, and it's understanding how logic applies. And when you're knitting, obviously you're applying some form of logic and pattern, and that's really how coding is about. It's about being able to apply logic, being able to follow some sort of pattern, and come up with something that didn't exist before. Right? So I think a lot of women, especially older women, are terrified of technology and think that there's so much bad in it, but there's a lot of good. And also there's a lot of good that can come out of women being involved in technology, and a lot of innovation that they can bring. So in your own space, I'm sure you've thought of things like, if only I could do this, without realizing that actually you can apply code to create whatever innovation you're thinking about. So yeah, I think the more women we have in the space, the better for our overall landscape.
Let's talk about coding. Are there specific coding courses that one could attend? And once you've done with the course, what sort of opportunities are available to you in the tech space?
Yeah, so obviously there's the mainstream, which is going to university, studying IT, studying computer science, even engineering offers coding these days. There's also a lot of online material that people can take advantage of. So the benefit of being online is that you mostly don't have to pay for the course. So you could do a lot of, a lot of people can't afford to pay 40,000 Rand a year for university. So online you could do actual structured courses that are offered by institutions such as MIT, where the fees would be almost half of the traditional price, or some of them are completely free. And that's your way of starting to understand how it works and taking it in your own pace. So I think there's a lot of scope and opportunity for people to start self-teaching themselves. I think this is the knowledge era where you have to take ownership of your own knowledge, right? You can't wait for somebody else to give it to you. So in that case, there's a lot. And we also, in South Africa, there's a lot of workshops that are being done, a lot of NGOs that are in the space, and allowing people to come in and start learning how to code.
In terms of free online courses, I often wonder about accreditation as far as those are concerned. Yeah. How does one discriminate between a very good, credible course as opposed to wasting months on end and then find, it's not accredited or you can't be certified for the course?
Yeah, so I think, the great thing about technology, and technology companies are now realizing that having a certificate doesn't necessarily mean you know what you're doing, right? So a lot of companies are now open to people that are self-taught, especially in the tech space, coders that are self-taught and don't necessarily have accreditation. But I think in terms of going online, there are very good platforms where they have a reputable standing in terms of international standards. So you might not get accredited at the end of it, but you know that the quality of what you've been learning is on par with universities. So it's about doing research and really understanding, does this work for me? Can I do this on my own? And will companies, take me on board if I don't actually have a certificate? And I think a lot of companies are becoming more open to it.
Now, as far as coding is concerned, as far as the tech area, technology world is concerned, we know the two basics that need to be in place is science and maths.
Yes.
And that, I think, is very off-putting for a lot of people, because we know that's a very, very big gap in a South African learning environment. How do we close that gap? Because you have to start at primary level.
Yes, yes. So I think you rightly said our maths and science stats as South Africa in general are really terrible. One of the worst in the world.
Would I be correct in saying that you can't get into this space, the tech space, without those two basics?
So not exactly. Right. I think the great thing about code, and because it's so visual, as opposed to maths and science that someone is struggling.
So abstract.
Exactly. So you actually start understanding some of the concepts that science and maths are trying to teach you through coding, because it's very visual and very structured and logical. And as you start doing it, especially girls that might want to get into gaming and creating visual games and platforms, while you're coding, all these things suddenly become real. You can see what you're doing. And so you start understanding, oh, okay, so this is what the science experiment was trying to tell me on paper. But now you can actually do it, in a 3D format. So I think it's more complementary to someone wanting to really understand science and maths, as opposed to if you don't know science and maths, you can't do coding. So I think giving a blend of coding, and there's a lot of now, especially for primary kids, there's a lot of online platforms where they're using games to teach logic and coding and maths. So as you play in the game, you're actually learning mathematics, you're learning science, and you're learning how to code.
Subconsciously, obviously, you're not even aware.
Exactly.
Now, it was a very big step for you. You were in a cushy corporate position, in a corporate job, but something happened. You started thinking, you started looking around you, and you were not comfortable with the status quo. A very big step you took, and how did that all start playing out for you? And I'm thinking your parents and well-wishers, didn't they try and stop you and say to you, you're going to uncharted territory, you may not make a success of this, and in the process lose a very cushy corporate position? Yeah,
I think, also with our background and how our parents grew up, it's always difficult when you tell them you want to do something unconventional. Right. I mean, even coding itself and technology is still very unconventional. It's safer to become, a doctor, all those traditional.
Absolutely.
So
it's not a real job that you're in.
No, exactly. So there's all those things to battle against. But for me, my parents, at the end are very supportive of what I do, and it's such a passion for me. I really want to get more girls into the space, and it just got to a point where I felt this is something I have to do, and I have to give it my all. So sometimes doing things while having plan B, not that you shouldn't have, but while you're in a comfortable situation, it doesn't push you to grow. It doesn't push you to, reach your limits. So I think just getting into this and forming the NGO and seeing how other people are also passionate about it and how they're willing to give their time into it. It just grows the passion, and it's been growing from when we started back in 2014 into something now that's becoming a national movement. So I'm very excited about the possibilities.
All right, so Girl Code is 4 years old. You decided you needed to disrupt this industry. And why did you decide to go the NGO route, and what sort of support did you get? Because here's this young girl giving up a corporate job, talking big. She has big dreams. She wants to form an NGO, which is called Girl Code, and she wants to take a whole lot of girls with her. She's disrupting the male-orientated techno space.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's a big leap, right? It's a lot of people are like, why NGO? Why not just make it a for-profit company? And the whole point is the girls that we need to reach, the women that we need to bring into this digital age, they are already in a disadvantaged position.
All right, hold that thought on the disadvantaged position. Let's go for our first ad break. I know that your answer is going to be a long one, so let's give you the space to unpack all of that. The lovely Zandile Keebine is in studio talking to us about Girl Code. Guys, watch out, the girls are coming out full force, and they're here to disrupt the techno space. Zandile Keebine is in studio talking to me about an NGO she has formed, which is called Girl Code, and it's about creating opportunities for girls and women around the country. So stay with us, and who knows, you might find a spot in Girl Code for yourself. We're going to get back to disadvantage, but would the industry be big enough to absorb hundreds of thousands of women? Can it do that?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and that's the exciting thing about technology, there is so much scope for a lot more people to come into play, right? I think that with technology and the kind of innovations that are coming out, I mean, if you look at what's happening in Silicon Valley, there's an app being built every single week, so that's the kind of disruption that we need this side. And I always say that if you're leaving half of the population out, then you're leaving half of the IP, half of the potential innovation, out of play. So in order for our economy to grow the way we want it to grow, for tech companies to grow, then definitely there's a lot of space for girls to be, and hundreds of girls, as you rightly said. For us this year, our mandate is to reach over 100,000 girls. So
100,000?
That's a huge leap, and that means
What sort of age group are you looking at?
So we're looking from 16 years old until 35 years old, and we have different programs that are geared up to tackle each different group and make sure that we address their needs, and we also upskill them so that they're able to finish school or start their own careers or start being entrepreneurs even. So in terms of absorption, I think there's more than enough space for
How
all
do you
these girls.
target these girls, and how do you get this very important message to them?
Yeah, so I think what's worked a lot for us is word of mouth. So in terms of, and social media, so we use social media a lot because almost everyone now is on Facebook, they're on Twitter. So it's easier to reach these girls that are on Twitter or Facebook, just to chat to their friends, but saying, hey, look, there's something on the weekend for you to empower yourself, for you to get a skill. So that's worked really well for us. And from then on, someone will come and say, okay, what is this? Let me learn, and they'll enjoy it, and they'll go and tell their friends, and they'll tell people in their school that, hey, you should come to the next workshop with us because we're learning so much. Just Saturday, actually, we were teaching how to build an AI bot, which basically for girls to compete, using AI and fight each other online. It's great exposure for them to do things that they never thought were possible or that they could do. So I think social media, word of mouth really works well. Now we're starting to go into communities, going to community centers, churches, because we also want to tell the older women, mothers, sisters, that you actually can also participate. You don't have to be left out. You have all these ideas in your head that if I could do this better, so technology
Give us
can
examples.
enable you.
So now you're approaching the senior mothers and sisters in the community.
Yes.
How do you sell this idea to them? Can they relate? I think that's very important.
Yes. So I'll give you an example. A lot of women do beading, or they sell, on the street they sell vegetables. So something easy to teach them is how to build a website. It seems so out there, but building a website, you can actually do it in a day, where you show your different beads and what the price is, and suddenly it's not just people that pass the street that know about your product. Suddenly everyone in the country can know about your product and exactly where to find you, how to contact you, and how much it is, and order it. You can order it online and it gets delivered. So there are so many more opportunities for women to make income, which is very important, because then they start being able to support their families and supporting their communities. So
there's now such a thing as a particular business, or is not. It won't be valuable for that particular business to have a website. Any and every business can have a website, and more people can reach them.
Exactly. So that's what technology does, and that's what having access to the internet does. It opens up the entire world, not just South Africa, not just Africa. It opens up literally the entire world. So there is no one who will be untouched by technology. And the more you leverage from it, and the more we show people how to leverage from it and the opportunities that they can get from it, you know, the wider scope and wider influence that they'll have and their business can benefit. And the more money that they can have, obviously, so that they can support themselves. So I think the notion that technology is not for me really should be thrown out the window, because that's not true.
Just before the ad break, we spoke about why an NGO, and you alluded to the fact that you needed to reach disadvantaged girls. How does an NGO talk to a disadvantaged girl, possibly in a rural area?
Yeah, so I think the benefit of being an NGO is, well, firstly, we're not driven by profits, right? Meaning that we don't have to charge people that already can't afford money to get opportunities.
But you have to make a living.
No, of course. So that's where corporates come in, right? Where corporate social responsibility comes in, and for them to back us so that we are able to fulfill that mandate, where we are able to go to communities and start giving these opportunities to women, benefiting them, but also benefiting corporates. So we mustn't forget that they also have a responsibility in growing the economy and making sure that we go back to these communities and we start developing them. The more people are developed, the more customers they'll have, right? The more people are tuned into technology and are able to use it and able to use the products, the more customers they have, the more money they make. So, in the grander scheme of it, we're all part of this ecosystem, and the more we collaborate, the more we can compete with the global market.
How do you sell this concept to the corporates, and how do they, obviously they need to assess the success and the viability that this project is in fact working. How do you do those two, how do you sell the two?
Yeah, so for corporates, I guess the great thing for us is already government has put together a framework for corporates to be able to contribute to
their social responsibilities.
Yeah, social responsibilities. So
but I mean, they're very discerning as to whom they're going to partner with.
Correct.
So how do you sell your vision to them?
So I think for us, and what kind of, the context is right at this moment, where getting girls into technology is what we need to do, and globally it's been recognized that what needs to happen for us to grow our economies, right? So it's almost an easy sell, because they already understand that this is a need and it's important to them. If they want to reach these girls that are in rural areas, if they want them as customers, if they want them as potential employees in the future, then they need to start targeting them now. And through Girl Code, and we've been able to show for the past 4 years, the girls that we've reached and their stories and where they are now in terms of when they started coming into our workshops and our hackathons, and how they've been able to grow and get into companies and contribute. So that story is for us, it's easy to show when you've really made impact in people's lives. So what we're doing is very
So you have
tangible.
a very precise database, obviously, of all of the names, places, ages, very comprehensive database, because you need to show the evidence that this is working and X amount of people have been reached.
Exactly. It's important to not just go out and you've targeted 50 girls and you don't know what happens to them afterwards. Did what you taught them, did they go ahead and implement it after the workshop or not? So it's important that we keep in touch with our girls.
How do you do that?
So again, through just our
technology.
Technology is wonderful, right? So through our database, we make sure that we in constant communication with them. We try and find out what are they doing, where are they now since they've entered our different initiatives, and just following up with them. So we have a blog where we get them to write their stories and their tech journeys. From girls that, when they first came to us, they'd never done anything, and they didn't even know what technology could offer. And then now they're working in tech companies. So it's important to tell that human story. It's not. Yes, it's ones and zeros, and for companies, it's about the bottom line. But these are actual girls' lives, and we're doing something to change it. And it's important that becomes clear, that how are we improving their lives.
Zandile, you have this great ideas which you have taken to the communities, very especially rural communities. You started up in 2014, you're 4 years old. By your standards, you're a roaring success. We're going to talk about your partners as well. You have 2 other friends on board with you. But what about, and it's not always a happily ever after. There are people that fall by the wayside. They just don't make it. What do you do for those people? And I don't like using the word failure, but those that just didn't cut it or make the grade.
Yeah, so, I think what we always say also is not everybody has to be a software developer, right? So that's not the point. We're not trying to create a world of female software, just software developers. What we're trying to say is that technology is going to touch every aspect of your life. If you want to be a doctor, technology is the future. It's part of it. Already now, surgeons are using, machines.
Laparoscopes, etc.
Exactly. So you need to be in touch with what's happening. You need to understand technology. So, and rightly so, we don't see any failures. It's more about how have we enabled you to use technology for what you want to do. Right? We're not trying to fit everyone into a box to say this is definitely what you want to do, what we want you to do. So it's not about just creating coders or software developers. It's about enriching their lives through technology. And that's why the different programs, help different people who are at different stages to use and leverage technology differently. But us, ultimately, it's about, did this benefit you? Is it improving your livelihood? That is very important, especially for young girls, especially for women, because we want them to be independent. And that's what technology can do for you, right?
Let's go for our next ad break. Zandile Keebine is my guest. She's formed a company, an NGO called Girl Code, and she is taking the country by storm by upskilling girls and women as far as technology is concerned. We're still having in studio with us. Stay with us. We're going to go for an ad break, and we'll continue the discussion right after. We're talking Girl Code with Zandile Keebine. She's talking about upskilling women all around the country to make a space for themselves in the technology industry. And even if you're not cut out for the techno world, she believes that there'll still be a space for you somewhere in the greater scheme of things. So sticking with that, how do you tell the person that they're not quite cut out for this? Let's assume you do some sort of an assessment and they just can't seem to get their heads around it. What will they have gained from that without feeling like perhaps a failure? Yeah,
so I think in our model, we don't cut out people or do assessments. So everyone is welcome to come to the events that we have and the workshops that we have. And on that day, we try to get them to do something very practical. Right? So what that achieves is that even if your website doesn't, it's not fancy and it's got whistles and bells, you actually get to build something in the day. And what we've seen is this works really well and it boosts people's self-confidence. So in that way, we're making sure that we're including everybody and we're not saying that, technology is not for you. But what happens is those that really, really excel, then we bring them up into other programs so that they can further develop their skills. And the ones where you just wanted to build a website and you achieve that, that's great. And we have mentors that come on board and they show you how to do. So in a typical setting, we'll have people of different aptitudes. Right, and we have mentors in the room. So if someone is falling behind, we don't tell you, sorry, go home. There's always mentors to come and sit with you, make sure that you're following and, go back a step and try and understand where are you struggling so that we make sure that everybody understands what we try to achieve at the end of the day. And
so you want everyone walking away from that day of upskilling, they'll walk away with something. Yes. Maybe even if it's just a broad understanding of what the technology is all about, but all of those superstars, you're going to continue working with them in the
Correct.
future. Is that then suggesting that this is just a one-day event, a once-off event in the different areas?
Yeah, so what we do is every month we'll touch on different topics of technology. So there's, again...
With the same people or in different areas, different groupings of
so
people?
there's different groupings of people, and some people obviously come to all the events. Some, as you rightly said, will come to where we're teaching how to build a website, right? And that's what they want to get out of it. They want to build a website for their business, and they'll come and they'll learn and they'll build a website. And for them, they've gotten insight into what technology can do. They've actually built something for themselves, and they'll walk away and think, wow, this is wonderful. This is what I needed to continue on in my journey. And that's enough. And we're happy that we've contributed towards that journey. And there's some people that want to become superstars in terms of coding. There's some girls that want to go on and work into tech companies. And that's where it's important that we partner up with tech companies, because they'll come on board and take them into internships and give them bursaries, job shadowing, that kind of thing. Then we help them achieve their goals of becoming, superstar coders. So everybody has different goals, and if you try and limit it and say, we'll only teach you if you want to become a coder, then we're leaving out a lot of women, right? So for us, it's important that we start reaching as many and just planting the seed. Just saying this is what technology can do for you. That already can open up a whole new world for all these women. Yeah.
And apart from going to certain areas to target people who can't get to you, where and how do you run these workshops? I presume it's on a regular basis.
Yes. So we've got partner companies that we run from their training rooms. So companies such as Intellect, which is in Melrose Arch, where we have different topics and goals, and anyone can come and learn whatever it is we're teaching on that particular weekend. One of our other...
Weekends only?
So for now, it's been weekends only. We've done a couple of things during the week, but at the same time, it's about the target audience. A lot of people...
School, work, varsity.
School is at work, so we want to make sure that there's a lot of opportunities. There's a program that we'll be running during the week for unemployed women, and that's to give them basic coding skills. And that will be run during the week, and we'll select, so unfortunately due to space, we'll select a couple of women that we can take on and teach them how to, basic computer literacy, how to use Microsoft Excel, Word, and that kind of thing, and then place them into jobs, which is important, right? I think...
And this is ongoing at Melrose Arch.
So the Melrose Arch is the workshops that they can attend. This will be we'll be launching it soon, where we'll be training women, specifically those that are unemployed, so that we can, place them into the different sponsor companies.
And people interested in joining up can just go to your website.
Yes.
Girl Code, I should imagine.
So our website is girlcodeza.co.za.
Okay. And
there's you can see all the different programs that we run and the different dates
throughout the year.
And you can just sign up. It's completely free, and you can come to the workshop.
What about young unemployed men who are really battling, and there aren't these type of opportunities open for them? If they approach you, would you allow them to join your programs?
Yeah, so, I always say, and I like saying this a lot, we're women inclusive, not exclusive. So there's guys men that show up to our workshop, and we don't turn them away. Because what that says also is that they're really hungry for this, and they want this. So, we'll never say to someone, well, sorry, we're not going to help you. So there's a lot of those guys that do show up. Of course, our mandate is to make sure that girls have a safe space to work. And we also make it clear when guys show up. Because, testosterone sometimes, guys can really get very competitive and create a very tense environment, and we don't want that. We want everyone to feel welcome. We want everyone to feel like they're there to learn, and if they're not on par with somebody else, there's nothing wrong with that. Guys are also welcome.
You indicated that obviously space is limited,
yes.
So I should imagine there's some form of criteria that you need to meet to be able to attend. What would that be?
Yeah, so in terms of criteria, we really just, if you are, it's more about the passion. If you want to learn, if you're currently studying, some form of IT or computer science, and you feel that you need more practical skills, because what we do is very practical. We don't get into the theory of it, because we want people to have an actual skill skill. And that's what companies and the labor market is looking for. It's looking for people that have the skill to do whatever it is that you need them to do. So it's more about, you need to have some basic knowledge around coding, whether it's self-taught or you're doing it at varsity. And yeah, if you're a female and if you're a guy and you're really passionate.
I guess if you're that desperate and you don't have any of those criteria, you would still look at the person, try and accommodate them.
Yes.
Be that as it may, tell us about your two partners. You've taken two friends on board with you.
Yes.
What's their background like and how are they enhancing the services of Girl Code?
Yeah, so I've got Jeanette Tewu. She's actually been my best friend for the longest time, and her background is in marketing.
Wow.
So she heads up marketing in one of the big telecos and within Girl Code, and that's why our social media and just having a great presence and building our brand. So she looks after that, and she makes sure that people know about Girl Code, because I think that's always a problem, especially in rural areas and underdeveloped communities where people don't know that there's actually these opportunities out there. So she just makes sure that we go into those areas and people know about Girl Code and where to reach us. We've also got Diniko Simbine, so she looks after our finance. So as you rightly said, we need money to survive. We need money to pay for all these workshops and food. We provide food for everyone and that kind of stuff. So she looks after finance and our sponsors and making sure that we keep bringing more companies on board. And the sponsor, we've actually just taken on another person, Portia van der Berg, who she looks after a lot of our programs as well as our PR and communication. So she's a PR and communication specialist, and she came to one of our events and she's like, this is absolutely amazing. I want to get involved. How do I get involved? So the four of us basically run Girl Code with a broader team of volunteers, and it's continuously growing, where we have more people that are coming on board so that we can reach more girls and more communities.
I have no doubt that along your journey, your four-year journey, there have been challenges and mistakes. What was the biggest learning curve for you as far as mistakes are concerned, and how do you face your challenges going forward?
Yeah. So I think initially, when you have a free event, and this is, I think, globally, people tend to think that there's no value in it. Right, so when we started, and obviously it's always been free, and even now, we didn't make it clear that there's actually money behind it, So we'd have an event where only like 100 people would show up, would sign up, and would make space for them and food for them, and then 10 people show up.
Ooh.
And it's obviously for the sponsor who paid this money,
And according to me, it ain't working.
Yeah. So they look at us and they're like, "What are you guys are taking our money, and you're not doing what you said you do." So I think it's become important as our brand grows, in terms of that particular challenge, that we communicate with all these women, and once they get accepted into attending a workshop, that they understand that for them it's free, but that means we had to work in the background to get that money to make it free.
Right.
So when they don't show up, they're actually taking opportunities from other people.
Absolutely.
Because once we fill the space, then we tell others that, sorry, you can't attend this time. So that messaging has, we've been intentional now to say, don't take away opportunities from other people.
Absolutely.
Don't give corporate, an excuse to say, well, I'm not funding this anymore because it's not working. There's a lot of girls that are hungry for this, and as our team, we work really hard to make sure that we give as much opportunity as we can to as many girls as we can.
Brilliant. And we've now come to the end of the interview, and for more information, obviously we can go to your website. And even guys that are unemployed or just want to upskill themselves, young guys, you certainly are not going to turn them away.
No, we're not.
Your parting message to our viewers this morning?
I think technology has a lot of opportunities that it's opened up, so let's seize it. And as girls, let's come to the forefront. Let's raise up our hands and say, I will also be included and I want to be part of this journey. So, yeah.
Zandile, great going. Wonderful meeting you. You're fired up. You're enthusiastic. The enthusiasm is wonderful. You're the type of person that needs to be showcased all the time, because you give hope to those people who believe there's nothing out there for them. Keep the flag flying very high. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And there you go, girls. Here's a space for you. grab it with both hands. If nothing, you'll have upskilled yourself. You'll have a little bit of a better understanding of what technology is all about. And the upside is, who knows, you might end up becoming a technology superstar. That's where we leave it. A big thank you to the hardworking production team. Please take care on the roads. Enjoy Ramadan. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala take you to the highest levels of spirituality in this month. Until the next time, as always, it is Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Ali.
Ya hala, 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 حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، حن قلبي على جمعة الخير هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا، يا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا ويا هلا.